you are very welcome. This is Beautiful Truth on breakfornews.com with Fintan Dunn reporting. Hey, thanks for joining me, folks. Great to be here with you on the 9th of January 2017. It's looking like it's going to be a good year. I hope you had a pleasant, relaxing holiday. And 2017 shows every sign of starting off as well as 2016 ended. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we were here to tell you the story of how Donald trumped the New World Order. And there they are, folks. On the 13th of November 2016, I did an audio about how a crew which began with George Bush Sr. and snaked its way through Bill Clinton, George W., Barack Obama, and was about to leapfrog onto the next pawn in the New World Order's game, Hillary Clinton, when somebody came along who put an end to all of that. And it was this guy here. That's the story of how Donald trumped the New World Order. Since then, we've had the astonishing, amazing, and terrific final end to major combat operations in Syria, which I think, as all state actors are now on new pages on all this, brings to an end World War III. You can argue about when World War II, 3, 4 or whatever, but I don't care what number you give this. This is the war which began on 9/11. And 5,597 days later, we are now looking at Donald Trump giving the coup de grace to the CIA and to, in fact, all the intelligence agencies, as well as that outcome in Syria and in the Middle East, where we're seeing the end of an era. And I'm going to take that all the way back to World War II for those of you who are not up to speed on what has really been going on. So quite an empire and quite a span of history has been consigned to history's dustbin as we speak. Now, it was only a short while ago that Hillary Clinton was maintaining that she had nothing to answer for and really didn't have to address all the questions which were being posed by the WikiLeaks revelations and indeed the unfortunate paltry security surrounding John Podesta's emails, which led to exposing of a cesspit of pay-to-play allegations. You know you're getting somewhere when the satirical websites like WaterfordWhispersNews.com, which is world famous now, when they get it, and here you are. I lost because hackers showed America what a complete freaking lunatic I am, and a corrupt one too, actually, Hillary, don't forget it. But this is an alleged pretend interview with Hillary where she admits that, you know, it doesn't matter who hacked our email, the horrendous content in them is still the same. I'm actually a horrible person that instigated several civil wars around the world. True. I'm also responsible for the loss of countless innocent lives while I was Secretary of State. We tried to blame the Russians for my losing, but the real truth is I lost because I'm a terrible human being. Okay? Okay, Hillary, we take your word for it. But, you know, that's what I mean about when your message has got through. You won't see that on NBC. And you won't read that in the Wall Street Journal. But, you know, you're getting that in, you know, the websites that know how to read between the lines and how to work out what's been going on. And they have, you know. And let's remember that this latest battle now, which has been definitively won by Trump, this one here against the intelligence agencies, on the whole idea of Russia being behind the alleged hacking of something. You know, that was a meme which was invented by Hillary Clinton. Here she is in a video I posted, and it was just days before the election, actually, and she was still saying nothing about the WikiLeaks allegations. In fact, she was just attacking WikiLeaks rather than dealing with the substantive allegations. And her method of defending herself was to play the Russia card. It's as old as Joe McCarthy. Here we go.
No, I have nothing to say about WikiLeaks other than I think we should all be concerned about what the Russians are trying to do to our election and using WikiLeaks very blatantly to try to influence the outcome of the election. And I have no concerns about the first question whatsoever. All right.
Yes, she has no concerns whatsoever. Well, there you go, down the toilet. And it was clear she was headed in that direction, and that didn't alter the momentum of all that. Now, in the meantime, we have seen in recent days John McCain have a Senate hearing where it really didn't end up producing any substantial evidence of anything whatsoever. And that was a bit of a damp squib. And we also had James Clapper and other luminaries appearing on national television in video clips explaining their grave concerns that Russia had hacked the election. And there was something that wasn't been mentioned in all of this, by the way. Something that was just left completely off the table and unspoken amid talk of revelations potentially about what Russia's real motivations might have been. Well, what would the CIA's motivations have been? Of course, this is Clapper, who told everybody on oath that the NSA didn't have any covert programs spying in a extrajudicial manner on American citizens, as he lied through his teeth. But we didn't just get the bullshit coming from him. Mid-December, we had the head of GCHQ, the UK intelligence gathering spying operation, electronic and otherwise. And he said that US hacking could inspire UK attack. That the Russians might be tempted to try and do the same thing in the United Kingdom. So you see, this was an Anglo-American agreement there about the grave dangers. Oh, hey, former MI6 chief warns, this was 3rd of January, over hacking risk to electronic voting in the UK. You just can't take any risks with these Russians. Although, later on that day, we had news that Obama hadn't needed to wait for additional evidence before responding to the Russian hacking allegations, and therefore that really signaled to those of us in the know that there was going to be nothing whatsoever in the Friday meeting where the CIA and, well, there's 17 different intelligence agencies. You know all about this, don't you? Because we've all watched this unfold. And they were wall to wall across the United Kingdom, to the United States, and even in Europe also, coming from the German establishment, the French establishment, saying how absolutely terrible it was what Russia was up to. All complete bullshit. And then when it came to Friday, and we started to get leaks actually on Thursday about, what was any intelligence that they had that proved this. It turned out to be US intercepts capture senior Russian officials celebrating Trump win. Well, hey, if celebrating Trump's win is a grounds for being a Russian agent, half the planet's won. So it was, in other words, absolutely ridiculous, a farce. I saw one headline. You can go and, if you really think it's worth your while, go to CNN, Google something called 10 most damning findings of the intelligence report on CNN. Most damning. Sounds promising, doesn't it? When you actually read it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. Every one of the 10 reasons is complete bullshit. So, as we came up to that meeting, though, something happened. And this is now where I'm going to sort of lose some of the humor as we go to the seriousness of what has been going on. It was Jack Kennedy who had said, famously, that he would splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. And Jack never lived to do that, did he? Now, Donald Trump is not Jack Kennedy. Nevertheless, we are in a different era, and the New World Order has not been defeated by Donald Trump, The New World Order has been defeated by all of those who opposed them. And it's gone on 15 years, 3 months, and 27 days. To this day, since they kicked off their bid to take over on 9/11. So, a very significant period in history has just come to an end with these laughable allegations. And it was only in the last few days before that meeting took place where it turned out that these intel goons had nothing, that James Woolsey, a former director of the CIA, quit the Trump transition team. That will show you a number of things. I'm going to start connecting dots for you here now. You see, when World War III ended, the declaration by Syria, by Iran, and by Russia that ceasefire was going to be in effect in Syria, and backed up then by a former Western ally, Turkey, pissed off at US attempts to stage a coup there in their geopolitical interests. You know, once that was announced, you noticed that the United States was out of the picture. Now, not because the United States was not wanted at the peace table. The United States is at the peace table, but the current representatives of the United States, and in particular Kerry, Clinton, and Obama, were persona non grata. That should tell you something about where we're at in relation to the New World Order. That if they are being written out of the script, that's pretty in your face, isn't it? Now, what Trump did with all of his appointments was he triangulated his way to the inauguration. Okay? So you'll have seen, have you heard much about Steve Bannon? You see, when he said Steve Bannon was going to be his right-hand man, that was sort of a signal that was the end of Bannon. If you care to follow me on the subtleties there, you see what I mean? The more he signals he's going to do one thing, the more he's doing the other thing, and using the signal as a smokescreen. So this is quite adept and clever maneuvering, and he kept people like Woolsey on board until it became pretty clear what the transition team were doing and how they were going to follow through on Jack Kennedy's vision, and also on getting things back to like real, and getting this rogue civilian intelligence system with backing from Bush Sr., getting it under control again. Now, Woolsey's an interesting guy, reported also on Business Insider. The Washington Post's Philip Rucker reported today that Woolsey became uncomfortable after being cut out of intelligence talks with Trump and his national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, and that he was taken aback by Trump's reported plans to restructure the CIA. Taken aback, aghast, realizing that he had been on the team there as cover. You see, Trump's not taking any chances. Nobody's taking any chances here with these people. They're still being played because they still think they're in the game. So by letting them think they're in the game, you get closer and closer to inauguration and closer to it being too late to do anything about what's about to happen. So this is a game that is still ongoing, but you know, they keep getting outfoxed, and that was a really clever move. James Woolsey, of course, is a senior executive advisor to Booz Allen Hamilton, and they definitely know where a lot of bodies are buried. Booz Allen Hamilton. And so we finally realized on Thursday, just before that meeting with the intelligence agencies, as the Wall Street Journal got some leaks, which were really whining by the intelligence community, whining that Trump plans to restructure and cut back intelligence agencies, according to the Wall Street Journal. One of the people familiar with Mr. Trump's planning said advisors are also working on a plan to restructure the Central Intelligence Agency, cutting back on staffing at its Virginia HQ and pushing more people out into field posts around the world. The CIA declined to comment on the plan. The view, said the Wall Street Journal, from the Trump team is the intelligence world is becoming completely politicized, said the individual who's close to the Trump transition operation. They all need to be slimmed down. The focus will be on restructuring the agencies and how they interact. And the article is getting worked up about that. Whatever. They don't know what's going on. I know what's going on. You know what's going on. He is trimming the sails of the very people who have been mass manufacturing bogus intelligence and who are using the intelligence arms of the US, UK, and indeed European countries as pawns in their own little intelligence game, the New World Order's intelligence game. So, looking in detail at some of the plans, and these were coming from General Flynn and Mr. Pompeo, appointed to the transition team by Trump and not New World Order insiders. Flynn will lead the White House's National Security Council, giving him broad influence in military and intelligence decisions throughout the government. He's also a believer in rotating senior intelligence agencies into the field and reducing headquarters staff. And here's the kicker. Current and former intelligence and law enforcement officials have reacted with a mix of bafflement and outrage to Mr. Trump's continuing series of jabs at US spies. They are furious about it, said one former senior intelligence official, adding that a retinue of senior officials who thought they would be staying on in a Hillary Clinton administration are now re-evaluating their plans following Mr. Trump's election. Yes, re-evaluating their plans, all right. But not without some whining and some ass covering. Well, you see, to actually so publicly hold that kind of a showdown meeting with the intelligence community and let them talk themselves into looking even more stupid shows you the kind of confidence that those who are taking over have, that they're home and dry. See, it was Jack Kennedy who said, "There's a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman and child before I leave this high and noble office. I intend to expose this plot 7 days before his assassination." And also, as I pointed out earlier, before that statement, he had said, following the Bay of Pigs, "I will splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds." That was his desire, never executed. So let's look into why it was. See, when he started looking into the CIA, as they did following Bay of Pigs, to figure out how deep the rot went, they realized that there are some people behind the scenes. And you can get up to speed on some of that on breakfornews.com if you haven't already, in a 2007 audio. Just shows you how long ago we were onto all of this. Bush Sr. murdered Jack Kennedy. Special guest John Hankey. That's terrific. 2 interviews there. And one of them about Bush Sr. and Jack Kennedy. Now, Sr., and here he is here, hand on heart, as he celebrates the christening ceremony of the USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier at Northrop Grumman's shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, October the 7th. And there he is with Jeb and GW and Barbara. And they're just having a great old time, don't you know? Christening that new aircraft carrier. Proudly coming down the steps there with GW. This is some crew, folks, and they've been in power ever since George Bush Sr. came to power as President of the United States. the great invisible dictator, has used every political leader since as his pawn. And that's what's coming to an end. Sickening, really. But there he is. And this guy doesn't depart the scene easily. And continues and continued up until recently to pull strings behind the scenes. An era that's definitely now coming to an end. But how far back that era goes? You recognize this guy? He could indeed be a young George H.W. Bush. Could he not? Let's bring that up in a little more detail there for us. Let's just take a good close look at this guy here and a younger version of the same guy. Except, of course, this other guy, he ain't George Bush Sr. That's Prescott Bush. That's a photo from Harper's Bazaar in 1943. As the archived article Prescott Bush Runs the World.htm on breakfornews.com points out, 1943? 1943? This is the guy who's involved in channeling money to Hitler. This is the heart of the Nazi operation, which you can get more about in a 2010 audio from the 9/11 Deja Vu series, 9/11 and the Fourth Reich Phoenix, which details how essentially the Nazis didn't lose World War II. Just one bunch of Nazis lost it. Another very devious bunch of Nazis who had organized the entire World War II phenomenon. They're the ones who didn't lose. They won. They won big. And unfortunately, a consequence of their big win was that Jack Kennedy died trying to challenge them, and that this guy here and what he set up continued to rule until they could move from being schemers behind the scenes to the major players. And so it is an empire which goes back as far as their rise in the Second World War, in the years subsequent to it, when they'd engineered everybody else to knock each other out, leaving only one man standing, and then made a bid when the rest of the world was coming into its own to reverse that tide of history with 9/11, and to, in their Third World War, to go for it all, where we're standing in the dust and wreckage of that attempt right now. And I, for one, am very happy. The New World Order, as I posted on the 29th of the 12th, 2016, has lost militarily in the Ukraine and now Syria. That defeat follows their political defeat in the US presidential race. The diplomatic moves which follow the siege, the Syria regional ceasefire, have not excluded the US. They only exclude the key New World Order political players, Kerry, Clinton and Obama. And what we have been seeing is a smokescreen to cover the final ignominious loss, the military loss, on top of the political loss. And now the intelligence arm. This is why you've got them in the UK, the intelligence guys, etc., all condemning Trump, etc., because they know it's over. Now, what I'm saying to you is that if there was any doubt about whether those forces, who I believe in many cases have been collaborating with each other covertly behind the scenes, and I don't mean like, the Russians hacking the United States to get Trump in, I mean them providing strategic intelligence, and obviously being, the ones leading the military opposition. So that is a reality of what has been going on. But it's bigger than just the Russians. You see, if there was a doubt as I say, about whether the New World Order were indeed truly down and out, then they wouldn't be dissed so recklessly by what's just gone on. You see? And they wouldn't be sidelined, and not even at the peace talks in relation to what's happening in the Middle East, unless they were, and I'm talking specifically about Obama, Clinton, and Kerry, unless they weren't already yesterday's people. This is rubbing their noses in it, folks, what you've seen go on. Rubbing their noses in it. It's over. It's over. On one side, you could say 15 years or so. Hey, good result. Thought it would have taken longer to get rid of these people, and that is true. On the other hand, it's 15 years since that fateful morning, around about 9 a.m., that news hit worldwide, and that my life, and I'm sure for many of you, your lives changed in ways that have seemed like an apocalypse, an economic one as well as a spiritual one in the intervening years, but one which is now drawing to a conclusion. You know, Zelig, it's a movie by Woody Allen. It's about this guy Zelig who, you know, shows up in all these places and seems to be at the key moments in history. And going back, and this does go back, there is Prescott Bush helping Eisenhower sign the executive order making John Kennedy illegal. I like the humor there. But indeed, that is Prescott Bush there sitting beside Ike, President of the United States, and the consigliere. And here he is with Tricky Dicky, Prescott Bush again. Just adjusting Richard Nixon's hat there. Good boy, Richard. Off you go now. Do what I told you to. Boy, has this guy been a player. Hasn't he just? And everything that he represented and represents again with Ike. And the killings that he's been prepared to countenance in pursuit of objectives. As Prescott Bush, millions as a result of World War II. Or that slaughter. And along the way, the death of this individual. For trying to do, in the final analysis, what this guy's just done. Yeah, it's been a long road, hasn't it? And so that's why you need to get a bit more upbeat. I've left doing this audio until, you know, some of the certainty I felt I had, you know, as far back as 2008, when the economic structure underpinning their global domination bid came apart, and I began to forecast that these people were going down. You know, I thought I'd wait a month or so just to see how it's panning out. It's panning out very well, isn't it? And it will continue to pan out well on the primary battle. Of course, that doesn't mean we're out of the woods, does it? It doesn't. Because Big Pharma is still Big Pharma. We're still all eating toxic shit. We're still all operating under an economic system which has got nothing to do with the common good. And we're still living in the wreckage of the hijacked political structures which used to be democracy. You know, I said Donald Trump's not my friend. Indeed, he isn't. But he has been and is still my enemy's enemy. And I've needed an enemy for that enemy. And in due course, we'll see where we go with Donald. I don't think that trickle-down economics is going to do it. Don't know if Donald's aware it's not either. But don't believe necessarily the inflammatory rhetoric, as you always know, with Donald. Just watch what he's doing. So far, my enemy's enemy is doing a great job. But there's a lot of work to be done. However, at least I can see a point to it all, again, for the first time in coming up on 16 years. And I'll be back with more on that, more on the other challenges that face us in the year ahead. And I do hope that you can take the time to join me for that. It's been some 15 odd years or so. I'd like to thank those of you who have supported breakfornews.com over that time, and to reassure you that, as far as I can see it, now our broader work begins in earnest and with a purpose. And I hope you'll join me in that. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back soon with more. Hope you can join me for it. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting